historia de mi vida. Amé mucho una mujer de mi alma la más querida. Me traicionó la perdida, caramba, qué ingrato y mal proceder. Ella me hizo beber, ella me hizo un perdido. A la droga me tiré, amigo mío, y a la cárcel fui llevado. Los amigos me olvidaron, solo mi madre lloraba. A Dios pedía y rogaba que se salvara su hijo. Recuerden lo que les digo, que en la prisión y en la cama solo nuestra madre nos ama, caramba. No hay dinero, no hay amigos, linda Guajira, mi son te llama.
Guajira, el son te llama a bailar, a gozar. Guajira, el son te llama a bailar, a gozar. Guajira, el son te llama a bailar, a gozar. Guajira, el son te llama a bailar, a gozar. Y al piano, don Rubén González.
Greetings, hello, greetings. Happy day to you. As always, we hope that you're doing well, and we welcome you to this week's episode of Our Ancestors' Voices, a weekly program sponsored all over the planet by the All African People's Revolutionary Party. Our topic today, concrete Pan-African work throughout Africa today. We're going to be zeroing in on a couple of regions within Africa and talking about the concrete revolutionary Pan-African work that is happening. But I do want to say that we would definitely and humbly want to dedicate this program today to our fallen comrade in Nigeria, our fallen comrade, Brother Abadan Arimu. who was a founder of the Amilcar Cabral Ideological School and was a committed labor activist and was a constant champion of ICAP, the Cuban Institute of Friends, in support of the Cuban Revolution. A week ago today, he was struck down in the streets by a vehicle through a hit and run accident, and very suspicious circumstances behind how that happened. So we are thinking about our brother today and our comrades in Nigeria. The Amilcar Cabral Ideological School is one of those organizations that we talk about all the time that agrees with the concept of Pan Africanism being one unified socialist Africa, and therefore is one of the groups that we work with consistently to build an All African Committee for Political Coordination, the All African People's Revolutionary Party. So we definitely are thinking about Comrade Brother Arimu, and we want to dedicate this program today to him, where we talk about concrete Pan African work on the ground throughout Africa. Definitely very important. And we are glad that you're here to join us for this very important program. Again, dedicating it to Comrade Brother Arimu from Nigeria, whose life was taken from him a week ago today in a very suspicious accident. And we are supporting our comrades on the ground, attempting to find out what happened to our brother and why his life was taken away. So glad that you're here. And we want to give, again, as always, concrete love and support to the indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere. I had the opportunity yesterday to go out and do a speaking engagement in front of several hundred people. It was some youthful organizers who had attended the so-called No Kings demonstration here in Sacramento. They had at least 10 or 11,000 people at that. And what these organizers did is at the end of that, they rallied people to march with them, and they marched a few feet away. And there are about at least 500, 600 people that engaged in this march. And then they had a more radical gathering of which they had previously asked me to come and speak. So I didn't attend the No Kings March, but I did go out and talk to a bunch of people. And of course, as you can imagine, even with 500 or 600 people, there were quite a few African youth there. So I talked to them about the All African People's Revolutionary Party, and got follow-up information from them, and we'll be talking to them this week about that, and talk to other non-African people about getting engaged in organization, and we'll be talking to them about that this week. That is the work. That is the work of a revolutionary organizer every day. And so we continue to do it all the time. And that's what separates us from, people out here that are saying, well, that's not our concern. So we not even paying attention to that march. Anywhere that people are that we can reach. And you won't get 10,000 people together in any city like this that has a large, diverse ethnic population. You don't get 10,000 people there and there's not Africans that are there. There's not indigenous people that were there. There were plenty of all of these communities there. There's not Asian people that are there. All of these folks are there. So we talked about that. And I'm saying that now because on the little march over to the location, the people started chanting, "Whose streets are streets?" So when I did my presentation, I told them, like, I know you all have great intentions. I know the people that organize this section of it, I know they have great intentions, but y'all can't be saying whose streets are streets. These aren't your streets. These are the streets of the indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere. And everybody cheered. I'm like, so you got to, use today as a learning opportunity. I'm not criticizing, I'm not calling you out. I'm just saying you can't be saying stuff like that. You say if you want to build a anti-colonial struggle, that kind of stuff has to go. Calling yourself an American has to go. All of that has to go. And people agreed. And I got at least 20 people I talked to that want to follow up. So we'll see what happens. A lot of good work comes out of this type of approach. We're organizers, so that's what we do. So we'll see what happens. So acknowledging that, and of course our African ancestors, which our brother in Nigeria Brother Arimu is now an ancestor. And I had a chance to meet him when we went to Ghana in December of 2018 for the 50th commemoration of the create of Kwame Nkrumah writing the Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare. And he was there with a large contingent from the Amilcar Cabral Ideological School in Nigeria. There are a number of Pan African formations that came there to commemorate the handbook, and just really was impressed with the commitment, the dedication, and the passion of the brother. And I know that's a great loss to our comrade family in Nigeria. So we want them to know, as I've communicated with a number of them already, we are of course with them, whatever they need. They are a part of our family. We are a part of their family. We are one people all over the planet Earth, and we are fighting for one objective, one unified socialist Africa. So we do our brief introductions as always, just to further illustrate that point. Our Ancestors' Voices. This program is sponsored every week by the All African People's Revolutionary Party, the AAPRP, which is a revolutionary, independent, mass Pan African political party that is based in Africa. We talked about our objective already, Pan Africanism. We defined it already, one unified socialist Africa. That's what we're fighting for. And our work to achieve that is outlined in Kwame Nkrumah's Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare. We talked about that already today. And this program is sponsored each week, same time, same place, same platforms, except for TikTok. Trying to live stream on TikTok, and they won't let us. They have a form you fill out, and you fill that out to uh, give them all the information, and then they'll get back to you once they approve you. And I've done it twice, and they've rejected us both times. So, we look at that kind of stuff. I see that as a compliment, right? Because I care as much about them as they care about us. We're just trying to get the word out. But when people respond like that, that tells me that I know that we're doing something right. This page has thousands of followers. So I know that we're doing something right, and we continue to grow. And we ask you to continue to tell people about this program. Let them know so that they can tune in. Someone told me this week that it was their favorite thing to do as it related to political involvement, because there are a ton of podcasts out here that interview people, and those are great. We have a number of them in the party that happen. They're great. But what this person told me is that yours is the only one I know of from a Pan African perspective that provides education and information, gives history, and does all those things. So I really appreciated hearing that, because you never know. There are some people that give positive feedback, but mostly you hear the negative. So that was great, and we will continue to do that. Myself and Shakura, who of course is my biological and ideological daughter, and is now Dr. Shakura Umi. So to get us started, I'll turn it over to Dr. Umi.
Thank you, Baba Jama. Appreciate you. Greetings, everyone. So, we are focusing on the work that is happening at home for Mother Africa today. And so we start by talking about, what does Africa as a primary mean? What does that look like in terms of it being a means for so many people around the world? And so we can start by thinking about how, regardless of where we live as African people, a lot of people get hung up when we say African. So, just to be clear, we are referring to anyone who descends from the continent, whether you know it or not. We are talking to you, right? You might have colonized yourself to be known as Black. You might even consider yourself an African American. We are still talking to you when we say this message today. And so, even thinking about, regardless of where we live as African people, or even of African descent, we recognize Africa is centered in our liberation efforts. And you have to recognize that, because everything that has happened to us has been a product and an outcome of the exploitation of what has and is still happening on the continent. The same argument could be applied to what is happening with the indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere, Same argument for the Palestinian struggle, same argument for our Asian descent comrades, those who have been colonized, but also those who have had their land stolen or had some other form of exploitation, resources stolen. We even think about our Irish comrades and their colonization impacts, right? And so, with Africa being our center, we understand that because of the exploitation of the continent, that in addition to African ancestors being abducted, has contributed greatly to the position that we find ourselves in today. And then you could, add on top of that and look at other systems of oppression, institutionalized systems, what that looks like, and how we have come to really process that, but also how we have come to propagandize and promote it to some extent, right? Because I think for a lot of us, we're not really clear how these systems hurt or harm us. And instead, because we're so disconnected with the fact that we are, in fact, African, I guess it's easier for us to just take on a new position where we don't fight as much. And instead, we just kind of assimilate and fall in line. And so, that's really unfortunate that that's the reality that some people are accepting, because that means that they probably have lost more sight compared to the rest of us who are still fighting, that Africa has and always will be the center of our liberation efforts. This is the reason that a lot of us are still surviving today, because we have understood that that center has always been at the artery, the key artery, and the gem and the jewel of why we do what we do, and more importantly, why we fight. Why we fight. So the politics in Brazil, Nigeria, Germany, the United States are important. But for revolutionary Africans, especially Pan Africanists, we refuse to recognize colonial borders because they refuse to recognize us. So we understand that, where Africa goes, that determines where we go, no matter where we live. Meaning, we're not going to acknowledge any borders that say that, as long as you are on Senegal, as long as you are in the country of Senegal and you're not crossing over, you must abide by the rules of the French and nothing more, nothing less. And then once you cross over into a different country, you now need to abide by the rules of that country's lineage, which in terms of lineage, I'm saying from a colonized standpoint or even neo-colonized standpoint. And so we're not really, acknowledging that those are not French lands. Those are not Portugal lands. Those are not Britain lands. Those are not Italian lands. Like, those are African lands. And even though the Italians and the French and the British and the Portuguese have colonized them, that doesn't mean that we can now recognize that. We should continue to resist that. And we should continue to resist what the dominant powers have been doing over time, because we know that they're not in control ultimately. The people are. And it's because the people have been fighting and because the people will continue to fight. This is why those dominant powers are working so hard to continue to be in control. The minute that we give up, then we yield and give them more of an opportunity to win. And we're not going to do that. So we have to continue to acknowledge that it's because of our persistence, it's because of our resilience, it's because of our ability to understand that we deserve a better world. It's because of our ability to understand that we deserve control of our land and resources. I mean, that's pretty simplistic. That's not really asking for a lot. That's literally the basis, the first hierarchy of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Like, that's the base right there: land, water, resources, right? So I think we can, just kind of think more about that in terms of understanding how we all contribute to what this dichotomy looks like, whether we acknowledge that we are in fact African or whether we know as an ally that what has happened in Africa is happening in other parts of the world as well. Whatever that looks like, how do we speak out against that? We talked about so many different ways that folks can be supporting and representing. Next slide, please. And that's going to continue to be important now more than ever. That is going to continue to be important now more than ever. So we have to continue to also think about, what does this mean in the grand scheme of things in terms of our principle and our character as well. Kwame Nkrumah, in his landmark 1968 book, The Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare, articulated the strategy of unifying all revolutionary Pan-African formations on the ground throughout Africa. So I will stop there and just ask you, if you're in a position to look at the slide, you can literally see visually what Nkrumah was talking about with the strategy of uniting Pan-African formations. He was talking about how through the Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare, we learned that we should be connecting any Pan-African organization within the African continent with another Pan-African organization so that we can continue to think about how they have similar interests, how they have similar work that they are doing, and how we are in a position to study that work, to duplicate it, and to replicate it in other areas where Pan-African formations may not already exist. For example, you see the if you look on the bottom left, you see the PAC, so the Pan African Congress, and then you see the arrow is connected to the All African People's Revolutionary Party. You see some arrows that are going to the Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare, and we even have another arrow going to the Pan African Union. We've got our comrades with the PAIGC, the Independent Party of Guinea-Bissau. We've also got the Azapo organization, the Azanian People's Organization. And so we've got some different examples here. There's more, but we have different examples here of how all of this is connected. You always hear us talk on the last slide about the book sales that we are trying to raise money for the Thomas Sankara Center in Burkina Faso, our comrades who are there doing the work. But recently, Baba Ajamu told me that we have actually been able to open up another location in Niger because of how successful not only our sales are going, but also because the work needs to be expanding, right? And so this is exactly what we're talking about in terms of unifying these Pan-African organizations and Pan-African formations. And we do this, you all, because we don't necessarily believe that every single African person on the continent or otherwise needs to join the All African People's Revolutionary Party. In fact, we have never insisted on that. And we say that pretty much every seminar. We do, however, expect that all African people to join some organization that is working for justice. And if you are on the continent and you live in an area where there is not already a All African People's Revolutionary Party chapter, that does not have to be the end of your Pan-African formation. You can start your own organization. You can join another organization that has shared common interest as the All African People's Revolutionary Party, such as the PAIGC, such as Azapo, depending on where your location and your region is. And if you are not on the continent, then you can do some research on these organizations. You can learn more about the work that these organizations are doing, and you can spread word for other people to at least learn about these organizations, because these organizations are doing work every single day, I would argue, in much harsher conditions than those of us who are not on the continent find ourselves in, because of the fact that they don't have as many resources, they don't have as much privilege, and they don't have as much opportunity to necessarily change their motives. This is why we have to continue to do the work where we are so that we can further support them. For some of us, that might look like actually traveling to the continent. For others, it might look like doing work from another location until we can get to the continent to do that work. For others, it might look like amplifying and promoting these organizations just so people know who they are and what they're doing. Even if they never have an opportunity to go to Africa, you should still know what work is being done. Just like you should know what work is being done to save and to resist and to protect Palestine. You should know what work is being done to save and resist and to protect Ireland. You should know what work is being done to save and resist and protect the indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere and their land, right? Like, we should know what's happening because we're talking about these things. So we should have information to couple with what is going on with these groups of people so that we can be in a better position to stand with them, to fight with them, but more importantly, to learn more about the issues that are taking place. We should know what's going on with the Asian descent people so that we can understand, resist, and protect them, right? Like, this is what this work is all about. Unfortunately, all of us have the colonization in common, and so we have more of a responsibility to stand together with that. So, because we've made these connections with the Pan African formations on the continent, on the ground, in Africa, and throughout Africa, we also agree, and we agree with these different formations, that the definition of Pan Africanism is one unified socialist Africa. And that's a beautiful thing, because what we're saying is you have more than one formation organization that has come together and agreed upon how socialism can be defined, which is very powerful, you all, because if you think about that from a larger scale, just on the slide alone, we've got 5 different organizations that are all kind of being guided by and following this same book that Kwame Nkrumah wrote, which they have the same guidelines and the same frames and the same policies and the same practices, which is good, very good. And then we all agree that socialism is defined as one unified socialist Africa. If we agree that that's how socialism is defined, then we also agree that we want Africa to be a socialist United States of Africa. So that means that all of these same 5 organizations are now fighting for Africa to reach and achieve socialism. So we are coming to you from the All African People's Revolutionary Party, yes. But what you may not understand is that there might be seminars and podcasts that are done by the PAIGC or by Azapo, and maybe you just haven't had access to find them yet. Maybe they're not on Spotify currently. Maybe you can't find them on YouTube, but that doesn't mean that they're not doing the work to get their organizations out there. And because we are doing this seminar, you're able to learn about the union that has been created. You're able to learn about the overlap in work that is being created. You're able to learn firsthand about what these folks are doing and why it's important to understand just how serious this work is, because there are people whose lives are at stake, you all. And what makes it even more humbling is I think about Africans who are on the continent. Maybe they're members of Azapo and Azania. Maybe they're members of the Independent Party of Guinea-Bissau, and they're a part of the PAIGC. Maybe they're a part of the Pan-African Congress Organization. But nonetheless, they are fighting every single day for you and you and I are tuning in from a completely different part of the world. They've never met us. They don't know our names. They just know that this work is important and it's going to impact us. So that's why they get up every day and they put their lives on the line, even though their offices are being bombed and even though they are being harassed by police officers. You just heard about the comrade who was murdered walking in the street, right? So we understand that this work is brutal and dangerous, but these comrades are putting their lives on the line every single day for us, you all. So this is another reason why it's important to know what they're doing. This is why it's important to have these conversations and to talk to other people, because not many people even understand just how advanced or rich Africa is. And they're certainly not going to understand how people are fighting every day to protect the advancements and the richness, because all we see is what propaganda and media has taught us. And we all know that we can't trust that. So we need to think more critically about what that looks like. I'll also say that because these organizations and formations agree with the definition of Pan-Africanism, then we have come to move that into one political formation called the All-African Committee for Political Coordination, also known as the AACPC, which basically is an umbrella term for us understanding these Pan-African formations that are linked and connected because we all agree and are all fighting for the Pan-Africanist definition that we laid out earlier, meaning one unified socialist Africa. Excuse me. And Nkrumah went even further by expressing that the All-African Committee for Political Coordination, or the AACPC, would form based upon the central committees of these revolutionary Pan-African formations, meaning every single one of these organizations has a central committee. And I just saw the meeting for our central committee with the All-African People's Revolutionary Party on our calendar coming up, I believe within the next week or even weekend. So it's really exciting to kind of talk about this and to frame it, because that means that we have comrades that are connecting from different organizations or formations, if you will, that are all a part of the Central Committee, and they should all be communicating and in conversation with each other based on their Pan-African formations. And this also means that we understand and have communicated that the All African Committee for Political Coordination, the body, would then become the All African People's Revolutionary Party and the All African People's Revolutionary Army. So we have this body that is being built based on the formations and the same definition of socialism, and excuse me, the same definition of Pan-Africanism, but also understanding that this All African Committee for Political Coordination is progressing and advancing into the All African People's Revolutionary Party, as well as the All African People's Revolutionary Army, and just understanding how there's these different layers. So going from the All African Committee for Political Coordination to understanding that we're connecting our central committees to be in conversation with one another, to work together, to establish events and programs, to create um, different events that can address housing issues, that can address, income, that can address gender equities and the social revolution, and then advancing that to become the All African People's Revolutionary Party, as well as the All African People's Revolutionary Army. And I'm sure that Baba Ajamu will not only continue to explain this, but also elaborate more. But this is so exciting, you all, because this is why, I'm very confident when I say, we are doing the work. This is what I mean when I say that. And it's very humbling to be a part of something like this, because you can see firsthand how it not only is making a difference, but how you as an individual can contribute to something bigger and greater than yourself. The amount of humility that it takes to really understand and accept that is mind blowing. And that's how you know that it's important for you to contribute, because we all have a part to play in this. Ashe.
Ashe, Obrigada, Asante Sana, Madasi, thank you. One very important correction, Shakur, that I have to make is in Burkina Faso and Niger, we're not selling books. That's not what's happening. What's happening is a program called Burkina Books, and what that program is in both countries is it's a organized campaign to bring revolutionary books into those countries. If you anyone who has been to Africa, you know that if you think about it, if you understand like how expensive it is to ship books, for example, if you take a basic 200-page book, hard copy book, soft copy, paperback, and you mail it to Africa, it's going to cost you hundreds of dollars to mail that one book. That's how expensive shipping is. And so if you think about it like that, what entities can afford to ship large numbers of books anywhere? And the only entities that would be able to do that are primarily these colonial religious organizations, the Church of Latter-day Saints, the Mormons, all of these Christian mercenary, I call them mercenaries because that's what they are, but missionary groups. That's who has the money to do that, right? And so, if you've been over there, like I have, most of the books that are donated to Africa to go into schools are, Huck Finn, See Dick Run, See Dick Talk to Jane, and some of the Moby Dick and the most reactionary literature that you can imagine. So, what the Burkina books and Niger books projects are doing, which are both work organized by the All African People's Revolutionary Party organizers on the ground in those two places, is to raise money to bring in revolutionary literature. Books written by Kwame Nkrumah and Sekou Touré, books written by Milcar Cabral and Thomas Sankara and Robert Sobukwe, et cetera, and so forth. So that's what they're trying to do. Fidel Castro, Ernesto Che Guevara, Walter Rodney, Frantz Fanon. That's what they're doing. So they're not selling books. They're trying to get people to sponsor their work to bring in books to those countries so that we can have revolutionary political education in Niger, and Burkina Faso. And so we'll talk more about that work in just a moment. But what we want to do for the remaining 30 minutes of this program is just bring attention to you about some of this work on the ground throughout Africa. And we're going to highlight a couple of regions. First, we'll talk about Guinea-Bissau. And Guinea-Bissau, as Shakur mentioned, the African Party for the Independence of Guinea-Bissau, the PAIGC, is a revolutionary Pan-African formation on the ground that was founded by Amilcar Cabral in 1956. And the PAIGC has a long history of revolutionary Pan-African work. They were formed and they did their staging work in Guinea, Conakry, the home of the Democratic Party of Guinea, which is another one of these Pan-African formations. Could easily have had their logo on the previous page as well. They staged that there in Guinea to fight the anti-colonial war against the Portuguese. And they ran, PAIGC ran the Portuguese, of course, out of Guinea-Bissau. We have APRP cadre who have done tireless work becoming key organizers within the PAIGC. And today, some of those organizers hold leadership positions within both parties, the PAIGC and the APRP. And this is, of course, in the vision that Nkrumah talked about. So you see the picture there is a PAIGC gathering in Guinea-Bissau. We have our brother Imani, for example, in the green shirt, who is on the Central Committee of the All African People's Revolutionary Party and the Central Committee of the African Party for the Independence of Guinea-Bissau. So this is what we're talking about. And that's a typical PAIGC gathering. When I was there, the picture on the bottom is me at PAIGC headquarters in their main meeting room in 2023 when we had the Congress meeting there. And we went to sessions like that all over the country where there were hundreds, even thousands of people who greeted us. And so this speaks to the work on the ground that the PAIGC does. And because of that, they're being viciously assaulted by the forces of imperialism and neocolonialism today in Guinea-Bissau. And due to this uncompromising Pan-African work that they do, neocolonialism, and remember, if you don't know what that is, we've done plenty of workshops on it. So I encourage you to check it out. It just means that the colonizers are not physically there. They're not physically in Guinea-Bissau anymore, but before they left, they set up mechanisms that ensured that their interests would still be carried out, even though African people sit in the visibility positions in Guinea-Bissau now. One of those people would be Mbalo, who's the current so-called president of Guinea-Bissau. And this is what we're talking about. PAIGC organizers constantly arrested, harassed, beaten. Their headquarters, where I'm standing in the picture there, raided by police. In any attempt to invalidate the PAIGC, because as the picture on the top shows you, the PAIGC is doing the work and has the popular support in Guinea-Bissau. And so when they had national elections in 2023, the PAIGC engaged in those elections because the elections serve as a barometer. First, in most of Africa, if you participate in elections, that enables you to receive financing funds. And most of these independent political parties don't have a lot of resources. So it's tactically helpful for them to do that. And then second, it gives you a good gauge of your popularity. So the PAIGC ran in those elections, and in the National Assembly, which is the legislature in Guinea-Bissau, the PAIGC won a dominant number of the seats in that election in 2023. And comrade brother Domingos Piera, the president of the PAIGC, won the presidential election. And this was validated by all of the international observers who came to Guinea-Bissau to observe the election process across the country. But Mbalo, who again is an agent for imperialism and neocolonialism, is a puppet for Portugal and France and Belgium, Britain, United Snakes of America, Zionist Israel. He invalidated the election in 2023 and sicked the troops on PAIGC organizers and anyone who supported the PAIGC. and by invalidating the election, refused to seat the PAIGC delegates and the delegates from the coalition that the PAIGC had formed with two other political formations in Guinea-Bissau. They call it the TAIRECA coalition. I believe I'm pronouncing it correctly. And so this happened. And then the presidential election, which Comrade Brother Pietro won by 80,000 votes, Imbalo said, no, that wasn't valid. And then had a re-election, which this time the international observers said, yeah, there were all types of problems with the re-election. But somehow, some way, Imbalo came out winning that election by a good 70, 80,000 votes. So this is nothing but international sabotage. And this is the work that imperialism does to stop genuine on the ground Pan-African work from taking place. So that's what's meant when it says today neo-colonialist puppet Imbalo continues to work in the interests of imperialism by banning the PAIGC's participation in the upcoming elections, because that's what he most recently did a week or two ago, is decree that the PAIGC could not participate in the election. But the thing about that you have to think, if you don't know anything about the PAIGC or what's happening in Guinea-Bissau, what you need to think about is if you're no threat, if I'm doing all the right things and you're not, I don't have to ban you from participating. I would want you to participate so that I could show the people that you're a fraud. And the fact that this clown had to ban the PAIGC from participating, this is because he fears the on the ground work that he's never done, that the PAIGC has been doing with the African people in Guinea-Bissau for decades now. I've been on the ground in Guinea-Bissau, and I can tell you that the masses of people support Pan-Africanism in that entire country. It's one of the most politicized countries in Africa I've ever been to, and I've been to a number of them doing this work. And so this is what they're afraid of, right? And that's why they banned the PAIGC, but they are not going to stop the efforts of the PAIGC to build up its unity and to become an essential part of this All-African Committee for Political Coordination that Nkrumah talked about in the handbook, to intensify its work with the All-African People's Revolutionary Party to become one in that formation. And they're doing that. You know, it frightened the hell out of them when we were there just a couple of years ago, when they made us PAIGC members. And when I got in the airport and returned back, they stopped me. They wanted to know. They asked me questions about that. The authorities, like, well, what were you here for? And why were you here? And I told them I just like the food. That's why I came over. You know, I just like the food and walking around talking to people. And they were like, well, what did you attend? What meetings? They were asking me. And the woman asking me spoke a better English than I did, which tells me she was definitely not from Guinea-Bissau. And if she was, she'd been removed and been trained by, Western countries. And, I just played dumb. I learned from my ancestors on the slave plantation. That's an effective tactic to use. So this is what they're doing to the PAIGC in Guinea-Bissau. But our comrades there will not be swayed, will not be bothered, and we will have the PAIGC will come to victory in Guinea-Bissau. And then we want to transition to Burkina Faso. This past week, we've had the Pan-African International Festival of Nguka that took place, or FIPAN. And FIPAN is an annual conference that takes place, and it takes place in different locations. And the purpose of it is to engage African youth from all over the world in coming together to strategize on how we can achieve Pan-Africanism. And of course, for the All-African People's Revolutionary Party and all of the All-African Committee for Political Coordination type formations, like the PAIGC from Guinea-Bissau, like the Democratic Party from Guinea, like the Pan-African Union of Sierra Leone, the Amilcar Cabral Ideological School of Nigeria, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. These formations all participate in FIPAN and push the concept of revolutionary Pan-Africanism, one unified socialist Africa. We go there, we build relationships with people, we create contacts, we follow up, and we do the work to continue to build the All African Committee for Political Coordination. So that conference has been taking place, like I said, in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso. Our organizers on the ground there and throughout Africa participated. We had large uh, numbers of people affiliated with these All African Committee for Political Coordination political parties from the Democratic Party of Guinea, the PAIGC in Guinea-Bissau, like I said, Niger, Burkina Faso. We had organizers from the APRP here in the US that attended FIPAN. And this is happening. This is the type of on the ground work that we are engaged in, you all, that's happening on the ground in Africa. There in the top picture on the left, you can see someone in the picture who has a shirt on that has, the logo of the All African People's Revolutionary Party in the meeting. All the pictures show a lot of that. Our presence was very wide there at that conference and very highly felt. And so this is how you build capacity. This is how that happens. Those of you that aren't involved in organization, you don't understand that. You think that it happens through the wave of a magic wand, I guess, but it only happens one way, through on the ground, day-to-day work to build relationships, intensify those relationships, intensify the political education, and get people committed to this objective of revolutionary Pan-Africanism, to build revolutionary Pan-African cadre. That's how we'll get there. And so the picture in the middle at the FIPAN conference of Comrade Brother Ahmed Sekou Touré, one of the ideologues for the All African People's Revolutionary Party and one of the greatest Pan-Africanists, that's perfect to have Sekou Touré's picture there, because his vision is manifested through the work these youth are doing on the ground throughout Africa, throughout the African world, to bring about this Pan-African reality. And if you see that, I mean, if that doesn't inspire you, because people ask me all the time, why have you been in the APRP as long as you have? And we have all the problems in the world. I'm not going to lie to you. Organization, when you're fighting against an enemy as strong as the international capitalist and imperialist network, is never easy. We have all of the challenges in the world. But the reason why, after 41 years, I am even more committed to this party and its work is because of what you see in front of you, if you're looking at it, and you should be. And that's that the future belongs to Africa. It's just a matter of time. Africa is on the move. And this is what I live for. And so this is wonderful to me to see this happening. I don't have to be at everything. I'm at a lot of stuff, but I don't have to be there. I just had our circle meeting this morning, our cadre circle meeting, and two of the sisters in my circle just returned from Cuba doing solidarity work in support of the Cuban Revolution. And then they had a meeting in Mexico City, and all of the youth were there, and they were talking about how strong the youth were and how the youth are organizing. And I'm like, whatever I can do outside of the way, getting out of their way to help, I'm willing to do that, because that's the future of this work. So when you look at that, the only question for you should be, how can you get involved in it? What do you need to do to be a part of it? I don't understand how that cannot inspire you. To me, that's the most important thing. These are what I've shown you in the last two slides, this FIPAN conference and what's happening with the PAIGC in Guinea-Bissau, and what I'll show you in a minute that's happening in Burkina Faso and Niger, etc. These are the most inspiring things happening on earth to me. I mean, but that's because I want the unity of our people worldwide, because I recognize and I understand and I'm convinced that that's the only way we will ever get what we need and what we want. We won't get it by voting for some cracker or some graham cracker in any one of these countries. That's not going to do it. What has that done for us up to this point? Not a damn thing. We won't get it by we can build as many nonprofits as we want. We won't get that, because freedom And revolution will never come from contributions from corporations and philanthropists. It'll only come from what you see here, from the PAIGC, and what you see from the Democratic Party of Guinea, PAIGC, all of these on the ground formations, APRP, in this 5-pan conference, on the ground, day to day revolutionary work, where you're only committed to one thing, and you only have to answer to one thing: the masses of African people worldwide. That's the only way that we will get what we want. And you can't argue anything different because you have nothing to show. Everything that we've gotten has come from mass struggle, independent mass struggle. Even those of you that promote vote, 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 we wouldn't even have this worthless vote if it wasn't for mass struggle. That's what produced it. So everything we have, we got from mass day-to-day struggle by the nameless, faceless people who sacrifice every day to do the work. From the people you know nothing about, like Comrade Brother Arimu from Nigeria, whose life was snuffed out last week. These are the people and the sacrifices that they make that gives you the opportunities that you have today. You can't name one example of where we've made any collective progress from any type of bourgeoisie activity that wasn't spawned by mass struggle. So you will never convince us, and you certainly will never convince me, that we can move forward when the masses of people are disorganized and disengaged just by voting for some sweet talking cracker or some sweet talking black graham cracker. That'll never be the model for how we move forward. Even those people are only there again because of the mass struggle. So our role at the 5-pan conference and in everything we do is to push the concept of revolutionary Pan-Africanism as articulated in Kwame Nkrumah's handbook, to build relationships and continue our work. I just told you a little while ago, I was out there yesterday. A lot of you Africans, you don't get it because you're not doing any work. You're just running your mouth. And I know when you're just running your mouth because of the things that come out of it. Because an organizer would talk about things in a way that a person that's just talking and doesn't do a damn thing would never know how to talk about things. For example, a person who's just talking and doesn't do anything would say something stupid like, well, I don't know why we would go to those protests. They don't have anything to do with us. As if any question of oppression ever doesn't have anything to do with us, right? I don't care who it is. And I get it. I get it better than you. I understand it was a bourgeoisie liberal protest. It focused entirely. When I walked out there, I wasn't even going to that march. I was going to the subsequent march that was organized by more radical organizers, but I had to walk through them, the thousands of people. But I'm smart enough and experienced enough to know that if there are 10,000 people at something and there are people organizing a more radical voice, that they're going to get people from that. So if you're not there, you don't have that opportunity. This is what I've told people about both Million Man March. Why are you going to the Million Man March? There are millions of African people there. You can't even get two people to come visit you at your goddamn house. They had millions of African people in Washington, D.C. in 1995 and 2015. I'm trying to organize African people. What kind of damn fool could not understand why I would not run across the damn country if I had to get there to talk to those Africans about organization? I was there talking to hundreds, thousands, I can't even lost count, giving them literature, helping them understand the work that we're engaged in. That's what it was about for me. I didn't go there to listen to Minister Farrakhan. I've heard Minister Farrakhan speak many times. I didn't sit on the grass and listen to his speech. That's what you would have done because you don't do the work. I got on the street corner with a banner, with a comrade, with literature, and we talked to everybody that came by. And so that's what the work that an organizer does. Y'all don't understand it because you don't do the work. But that's the work that an organizer does. I said that I went out there yesterday. I got 20-something names of African youth. I'm going to follow up with them this week. And some of them will probably one day soon join the All African People's Revolutionary Party. But if I'm not doing that kind of work, if I'm just sitting in my house running my goddamn mouth all the time, I'm not recruiting anybody except gas and diarrhea. So this is what you got to understand about this work, y'all. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. We disrespect ourselves with how silly we act all the time. We're trying to tell the truth that we got to understand the importance of doing this work. And we have to spread the work because it's not going to be on CNN and CIA network. I had somebody tell me they tried to log into this program and they didn't get in, and it said they're going to a dangerous, illegal site. And I haven't seen that person since they told me that. And I'm like, and then I'm sorry, I saw them, but not on this program. And they told me this. And I said, well, you weren't gonna do anything anyway. If you that scary and cowardly, you're not gonna do anything anyway. So I don't even miss you. So let's talk about the Sahel in there. And on the screen we have, our cadre, AAPRP cadre organizer, Sister Inim in Burkina Faso, where she lives, and she's organizing there for the AAPRP, and they have organized this Burkina Books project, as well as Niger Books that I talked about a little while ago. And like it says there, the AAPRP is active all over Africa. In Azania, which I'll be in January, South Africa, doing work for the party there, Zimbabwe, Kenya, etc., in Southern Africa, in West Africa, in Ghana, Guinea-Bissau, Guinea, etc., and certainly in the Sahel, Burkina Faso, Niger, and I know they're working on Mali right now as well. And the APRP cadre there have launched this Burkina Niger Books project, which is designed to facilitate bringing in revolutionary Pan-African literature into the Sahel region for mass political education and organization. That's the purpose of it. That is the purpose of it. Our cadre circle this morning, we're reading um, I can never, I'm dyslexic about the title, but it's Shakura knows it's Women in Revolution in Cuba. I think that's it. Women in Revolution in Cuba. It's by Fidel Castro and Vilma Espin, two central figures in the Cuban Revolution. This is a phenomenal book. And people want to argue with me about Cuba, and they haven't read this material like I have. So I'm like, why would I listen to you? That's like me trying to argue about delivering a baby. That's absolutely worthless. I'm not going to waste that time in my life arguing with you. You don't even know what the hell you're talking about. Who's a greater fool, the fool or fool that follows? If I listen to you, I'm the fool that follows. Not going to do it. So this is the type of literature, that book that I'm reading in my circle right now, that is difficult to find in Africa. And what our party organizers on the ground are doing is doing work to bring literature like that into Burkina Faso, into Niger, into the Sahel, into all of Africa, so that we can begin to politicize our people towards the concept of revolutionary Pan-Africanism. It wasn't until just a few short years ago that Kwame Nkrumah's books were legal in Ghana, the country of his birth, the country that he led to independence. So this is the fight, is to bring revolutionary literature to our people. You can get modeling magazines in Africa, all over Africa, those are available. You can get nonsense all over Africa, but getting revolutionary literature, that's the thing that we're struggling to do. That's the essence of our work, through the work that's happening through the Sahel. So we're telling you all this so that when you see something about Guinea-Bissau, and if you don't see it, you should look for it. And the African Party for the Independence of Guinea-Bissau, the AAPRP, the All African People's Revolutionary Party in Guinea-Bissau, the PAIGC, you should support it. When you see work about Burkina Books, Niger Books, you should know that's the AAPRP. You should support it. When you see something like FIPAN, International Conferences of Pan-Africanism, you should support it. This is the work to liberate our people. And so many of us don't know anything about it, don't want to know. And even when we do know, we do nothing to help others know. Some of us do. I'm not saying everyone, but not enough of us. That's what we need to have happen. That's how we're going to win. All right. So we thank you for coming today. We thank you for joining us. We invite you to join us next week, Sunday, October 26th. Our topic is going to be Zionist Israel, the liar, that keeps on lying, because everything about the Zionist movement is a lie. And if you tune in next week, you're going to find out some core essentials that propagate their lie. And we're sick of these lies. We're here to tell the truth. As my grandmother used to say, tell the truth and scorn the devil. So that's what we're going to do. So the QR code in the upper left-hand corner, the red and white one, you can find out about other AAPRP programs that are virtual besides this one. So you want to check that out. We have a Forward Ever shop that has hoodies. And, I saw my comrade brother here in Sacramento. He came into the self-defense class Thursday night with a hoodie on. And I'm like, I didn't even see that one, so I gotta go on there and order that one. He had a fat hoodie on. It had, I think it was Kwame Nkrumah's secretary and Kwame Ture on it. So I gotta look up that one right now. You can find out about it in that QR code on your screen, hoodcommunist.org, Revolutionary Pan-African blog. So check that out and you can get it. Again, we want you to come back next week. Zionist Israel, the liar that keeps on lying. And every Thursday night from 6 to 8, we have self-defense, community self-defense. Come and educate your mind. We're building communities. So what we do is we work out your mind, then we work out your body. Teach you how to understand who the enemy is, and then teach you how to defend against the enemy. So come on out if you're in the Sacramento area. 2775 Cottage Way, Cottage Way, Unit 15, 2775 Cottage Way, like cottage cheese, Unit 15, 6 to 8 p.m. every Thursday. Come on out. We'll even be doing it on Thanksgiving Day. We don't celebrate no colonial holidays. We'll be doing our community self-defense that night. So come on out and join us. Join the All African People's Revolutionary Party. If you're African, you should do that. You should at least come to an orientation so you can know about it. So at least when we tell you, well, why don't you join the All African People's Revolutionary Party? Don't say, I don't know. I don't. They want to give me the. They telling me that I gotta have a nose ring, and I don't believe. Don't say nothing dumb and crazy as hell like that. Get some information. So if you go there, you can watch a video, you can get informed, and you can find out. So that's what we want you to do. And then Burkina Books, the QR code on the bottom right, the black and white one, like I told you, those are the projects of the AAPRP in Burkina Faso and Niger. So become a monthly sponsor. We're not selling anything. We're asking you to become a monthly sponsor so that you can pledge $10 a month. That's how they're raising the money to ship these books. And they're doing that. But the more of you that support this, the more capacity they'll do to do that. The more capacity they have to do that, the more we can educate our people about the necessity for Pan-Africanism. So become a monthly sponsor. And then finally, please buy my book. And if you bought it already, tell people to buy it. Call your local library and ask them to order it and put it in there. A guide for organizing defense against white supremacist, patriarchal, and fascist violence. A guide for organizing defense against white supremacist, patriarchal, and fascist violence. Unfortunately, it's only available through Amazon, but 100% of the proceeds we use for our anti-fascist work. We have, materials, pads, everything we use for self-defense. So where do you think I got the money to buy that? From the proceeds from this book. So support, plus it's a great book about revolutionary organizing. So go on Amazon. I know it hurts me, but the pain goes away when I use all of the proceeds. I see people organize who read the book, and I use the proceeds to forward our revolutionary work. So you can do that too. So thank you. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Forward ever, backwards never.